Welcome, everybody. Joseph Robert Camo, the fantasy football counselor. Happy Friday. Everybody keeps asking me, starts and sits, when are you going to do the show, Joe? Who do I start, this guy or that guy? I've got all the answers. I'm going to tell you all the optimal plays at each position to help you guys with starts and sits for this upcoming week one of fantasy football. Thursday night football is over. We're going to talk a little bit about that game, but I want to focus on the weekend starts and sits. This show is brought to you by DraftKings, the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL. Guys, download the app, use promo code FFLion. That's FFLion for Fantasy Football Lion, because that's what you guys are. Listen, guys, I get to draft every single week, and that's what makes it so exciting, because with year long, tons of people DM me, oh, Joe, my draft is done. I'm so upset. I get it, but you get to draft every single week, and you don't got to worry about injuries, because we see the injuries, and I'm going to use Baltimore as an example. Pretty much lost their entire running back committee, and that's what happens in year long. But with daily, you get to have fun, enhance that game watching experience, draft every single week, and you could do it on the number one place to do it, where I do it, DraftKings.com. And also, guys, just go download the app, use promo code FFLion, and week one, you have a shot at $1 million. Guys, this is absolutely huge. I mean, set your roster under the salary cap, pick the optimal players, which I'm giving you guys a lot of answers. Make sure you guys check out the Wednesday DFS show to help you guys out. DraftKings right now. Go download the app, use promo code FFLion. You're going to be very happy. I draft every single week. And again, Wednesday, I am doing a DFS show as well, where I'm giving you those optimal plays. And the starts and sits today are going to help you as well, okay? Go download the app right now. Use promo code FFLion. You'll be very happy. Again, today, starts and sits. Let's get to the show. Football's back. Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert Camo. We're talking starts and sits, and in my hand, I've got the Lawnmower 4.0, guys. I'm just checking out the back features of the box. Skin-safe technology, rechargeable wireless charging, LED spotlight, waterproof. This is sexy. Check it out, guys. And you get 20% off this amazing product, guys. Stay groomed, stay fresh, look good. If you're going on a date, whatever you're doing, guys, if you're at home with the wife, she'll be very impressed. If you need a buzzer for your wife, it's right there as well. Go to manscaped.com, promo code ShowerLion, and also join the Fantasy 365 community, where you get as close as direct access you can to get to me, guys. Make sure you guys head down below. There's a link here, or just Fantasy 365. Google it, guys. It's going to come up. I think it's the second one down. Someone's got my first slot there on Google for Fantasy 365. We're going to have to beat them there. But yeah, just Google Fantasy 365 Mastermind. It should come up. And join the community, guys, okay? And as I mentioned before, download the DraftKings app. Use promo code FFLion. Go download the DraftKings app, FFLion. And, my starts and sits is really going to help you with your lineups as well, because you're going to know who the tough matchups are and who the other ones are not, who the easy matchups are, okay? So, first starts and sits episode of the season. Let's dive into it. I'm going to start with quarterback. I'm going to go tight end. We're going to go running back, wide receiver. That's how I like to work. I like to save running back, wide receiver to the end, but let's talk about it so you know who the optimal plays are. Now, if you watched Thursday Night Football, you saw what happened. Tough matchups do make a difference, and we saw the game script change for the Dallas Cowboys, who, with Zeke Elliott, literally just didn't give him the rushing attempts that he deserved. And it was a tough rush defense. So they did throw the ball. It was a smart play by the Cowboys, obviously, to throw more. It was a close game. Now, you can make a debate that they got screwed at the end with the push-off there with, I believe it was Godwin. At the end of the day, they still won. Don't let it get that close. Start winning. Don't leave it to the, with UFC, I say don't leave it to the judges, okay, guys? Make it convincing. And that's what you guys do in fantasy. Don't win your weeks by 1 point. Dominate your leagues, okay? So again, matchups do make a difference. We're going to talk about it, but it's up to you at the end of the day with your gut feeling. Now, if you're talking year long here, I mean, if Justin Herbert's your starter, and that's the only quarterback you have, which you shouldn't, because you should have a backup. He's got a tough matchup this week, for example, but you got to start him. He's your starter. Sometimes the matchup's tough, but they still do well. Sometimes the matchup is hard and they really crap the bed. So at least you're aware of who the tough matchups are and who to start to sit for NFL Week 1 fantasy football. All right, good, easy matchups. So let's go through some. Jimmy Garoppolo, easy matchup. Tom Brady had an easy matchup, but he's already done. Jalen Hurts, guys. Jalen Hurts has got a pretty easy matchup against Atlanta. Second, third easiest per his position. Sam Darnold has an easy matchup. Tyrod Taylor. And he's, again, some of these guys you may not start for year long, but if they're your backup, consider them because they've got easy matchups, okay? Kyler Murray, easy matchup. Trevor Lawrence, his first game in the NFL, easy matchup versus Houston. Lamar Jackson, easy matchup. Pat Mahomes, I mean, everyone I think is starting him. He's playing Cleveland, relatively easy matchup. Carson Wentz versus Seattle, relatively easy. Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, Ryan Fitzmagic, all easy matchups. Now, there is the guys that I'm not going to mention have mid-range matchups, guys like Zach Wilson, Matt Ryan, Ryan Tannehill, but the guys that have it in tough this week, okay? And this is really funny here because Andy Dalton shouldn't even be starting. It should be Fields, right? Fields should be on the field, right? And Justin Fields. But Nagy's being a pest, and he's starting Andy Dalton. And good, he's got a tough matchup versus the Rams. So I don't know how he's going to do, but all I'm saying is that Fields should be on the field. Dalton's washed up. If he does well against the Rams, I doubt he does. Should be interesting to see if he stays in. I'm sure he does if he does well. Josh Allen has got a tough matchup. I know a lot of you guys starting Josh Allen, but he is playing Pittsburgh. It's not going to be the easiest matchup for his position. Aaron Rodgers, tough matchup versus the Saints. Justin Herbert, tough matchup versus Washington. Be aware of that. Jameis Winston, who looked good in preseason, connecting with his receivers, playing Green Bay. Now, understand their rush defense sucks. Green Bay can be kind of sloppy, and it is a bit, it is a bit tougher matchup sometimes against the corners. But let me tell you something here. Week 1 is a feeler out thing, okay? So a lot of these projections that I'm talking to you is pretty much predicated on last season with some adjustments. It's going to change slightly, okay? Oh, it might change drastically because what happens is with defense, they're really, really difficult because you've got all these rookies coming in, so many changes. It's totally different from the offense. The offense, okay, Tom Brady's starting, I kind of know what I'm going to expect, right? With defense, especially with the Buccaneers bringing back their whole team. But with certain defenses, it's just major changes, injuries, that type of thing. So it's going to change. Just be aware of that, okay? Tua's got it tough against New England. Jared Goff, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson against Indy, having it a little bit tough. Matt Jones against Miami should be a good test for him. Not the easiest, not the hardest matchup as well. Same with Joe Burrow, all right? So those are your quarterbacks. Go back, rewind, listen again. But you got your guys that are optimal. And again, guys like Tyrod, Trevor Lawrence, guys that maybe not be starting for year long. Maybe even Sam Darnold have easy matchups, just to be aware of that, okay? Moving on to tight ends. Again, leave your questions below. I'll try to get to some questions, okay? Leave some questions below. I'll try to answer some starts and sits, but I can't guarantee it. That's why you got to join the Fantasy 365 Mastermind because we got a bunch of lines. We start a whole thread there. We answer those questions. So Fantasy 365 Mastermind below, okay? All right, let's move on to tight end here. Guys that have it in tough. A guy that was drafted in the 3rd round. TJ Hawkinson does have it in tough versus Sam Fran this week. Other guys you want to be aware of that have it in tough here. And again, be careful with tight ends. As long as you get 10 points out of your tight end, you should be good. Don't overstress it. But Mike Gesicki's got it in a little bit tough. 5th hardest matchup versus position. Again, he is playing New England. So Hawkinson versus Sam Fran. And we've got Gesicki against New England. Be careful with him. Geno Smith, I know a lot of people have him. He's got it in tough. Miami plays tight ends tougher. But again, this is kind of based on last year. We got to see how things fall into play this year. Noah Fant versus the Giants. He's got it in a little bit tougher there. Be cautious about him, okay? I know I'm just going off some names that are popular and people start. In regards to optimal matchups, this is interesting. Rob Gronkowski, and he played yesterday. He had an optimal matchup, 3rd or 4th hardest versus position, and he crushed it. And he was on my bench. So I should be taking my own advice. I should have started him. But just to note, he did have a good matchup, and he did well. So sometimes it projects really well. Now, Tyler Higbee, another guy from the Rams. Good matchup. Is he going to do well? We don't know. Monitor that. How does Tyler Higbee do, right? We're going to go back over this next week and see. Tyler Higbee had a good matchup. How did he do, right? Something to monitor. Austin Hooper's got a relatively easy matchup versus KC. Something to be aware of. Pat Freiermuth, believe it or not, and Eric Ebron, all the tight ends from Pittsburgh have got an easy matchup versus Buffalo. They play tight ends a little softer, so you got to be aware of that. So Pat Freiermuth, who had a couple touchdowns in preseason, could be a sleeper in DFS and a good value. I mean, he's going at 2.5, 2,500 salary on DraftKings. Not bad at all. Logan Thomas, Washington, a lot of buzz about him breaking out this year. Him and Ryan Fitzmagic have a good matchup. So if you've got Logan Thomas, definitely worth starting there. His matchup is optimal. Kyle Pitts, a guy I have on my team. I'm excited to see that he's got a good matchup against Philly this week. Excited to hear that. I'll be starting him in my year-long. Hopefully he does well. Robert Tonyan, relatively easy matchup as well. Then you've got your mid-range guys. People ask me, how good is George Kittle's matchup? Do I start him? Mark Andrews, guys like that. mid-range matchup, guys, right in the mid-range, and not too hard, not too easy based on projection of the matchups, okay? Jack Doyle, again, mid-range as well, guys like that. All right, so that should cover you. Also, Darren Waller, 10th hardest matchup versus position. A lot of people ask about him as well, okay? So that should cover most of your tight ends. If you got Jared Cook, him and Herbert have it in tough this week, okay? Just to let you guys know, they are playing Washington, D. Should be tough theoretically, okay? Moving on to wide receivers. Now, go back and listen to the DFS show. I give you a bunch of sleepers, a bunch of plays here. Let's talk about the toughest matchups versus position at wide receiver. We talked about Dalton having it in tough, playing the Rams, and so does Allen Robinson, okay? It's Darnell Mooney. So they're going to have it in tough if you are starting them. I know a lot of people invested very heavily in Allen Robinson in the early drafts. I think it was second or third round, okay? In regards to Keenan Allen, obviously, I love him. I love Herbert this year. Again, I keep going back to this. Tough matchup for Herbert and the Chargers. Now, here's the cool thing. If Herbert crushes it, absolutely crushes it in week 1, I'm excited for him because I went and bought an expensive rookie card of his. So if he does well, week 1 with this tough matchup versus Washington, theoretically, look for big things, okay? Josh Palmer, Mike Williams, all those guys have it in tough. Now, if you guys don't have Josh Palmer on your rosters, probably a good sleeper because Mike Williams can't stay healthy, and I love Herbert this year, okay? Landry Odell, all those guys have it in tough versus KC secondary this week. Cleveland at KC, be aware of that. Other guys that have it in tough are the Steelers wide receivers. And with Buffalo, they got, Deontay, Juju, all those guys, they're going to have it in tough. Now, I'm starting Deontay in one of my lineups. He's got, theoretically, the 6th hardest matchup for his position. Something to be aware of, okay? Cooper Kupp, got it in tough. So the Rams against Chicago secondary, a little bit tough matchup there as well. Now, here's an interesting thing here, okay? Now, theoretically, this is something to be aware of, right? When you are doing this. Amari Cooper and the Dallas receivers had it in tough against Tampa Bay. And it did okay. Right now, it didn't translate well for Zeke Elliott, but it translated well for the receivers. So, again, even though on paper, you looked at Amari and all those guys, CeeDee Lamb, and they're like, oh, they got a pretty tough matchup against Tampa Bay, and they still did well. So, Dak stepped up there. So, again, just because I'm telling you guys, hey, Deontay's got a tough matchup versus position, Keenan Allen's got a tough matchup versus position, Allen Robinson's going to have a tough matchup versus position, does not necessarily mean you should sit them, right? So I'm saying, yeah, based on matchup, they should be sat. But they could absolutely crush it. If they're your starters, you start them. Now, where this is really going to help you is if you've got an 8-man team or 10-man team or even just a loaded team. You're just a smart drafter. And you're trying to decide, for example, I've got, let's say, Allen Robinson on my team, for example, and you're trying to decide between him and, let me give you another example here, DeAndre Hopkins. Just an example here. Now, DeAndre Hopkins has a favorable matchup this week, and it's a coin flip, and you can only start one for some weird reason. Then you got to make a decision, right? It happens all the time, especially in flex plays. Do I start this guy and this guy, right? And that was a bad example. I chose 2 top-tier wide receivers. But I'm talking about guys that are bench players, right? Guys that, do I start like Leonard Fournette? And Leonard isn't a bench player, but he's more of a flex play, not a guy I would start as an RB1. But, do I start Leonard Fournette or I just start Joshua Kelly from the chart? Like, look at their matchups. Take a look. And that's what we're talking about here, okay? So other tough matchups, we're just trying to see if there's anything that pops out. New Orleans, again, wide receivers have it a little bit tough. Be careful there. And I'm trying to see here. Also, Washington wide receivers have it in tough. Be careful. But again, Ryan Fitzmagic comes out, does some magic, and you're good. Jerry Jeudy against the Giants secondary, and Cortland Sutton might have it a little bit tough, but they could crush it. And also the, Elijah Moore and the Jets wide receivers have it a little bit tough as well, okay? So Jets are playing Carolina secondary, and they can play tough, okay, based on matchup. Easy matchups. Let's check this out, guys. And it was on my list here for Thursday Night Football, and I should be doing starts and sits a little earlier, but I just want to get it as close as possible to the game. That's why I'm doing it Friday. But Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin got an easy matchup versus position. Theoretically, the easiest versus Dallas, and they all did pretty well last night, okay? So Tampa Bay receivers did pretty well. Let's keep moving on here. Deebo Samuel, Ayuk, have a good matchup versus Detroit. Detroit, I think they're going to get slaughtered, but who knows? Detroit has known to keep it tight, with bad teams. Theoretically, it is week 1. They could keep it close in the spread. And I was right about that spread. If you go watch the preview show, one back, I was talking with Tanner, and I said, I think Dallas keeps it tight. I even put it in my story mode, and they did. So I'm pretty good with the spreads, but I don't know. Detroit's got to do something special this week to get my attention for sure. Got to see what they're capable of. But Debo's got it easy. Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, all these guys have it easy. Jamar Chase and the Bengals. The Bengals wide receivers have it in good versus Minnesota secondary. DJ Chark, I told you, Trevor Lawrence got it in easy matchup this week with Trevor Lawrence and all those guys. DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, Marvin Jones versus Houston. They've got it in good, okay? Receivers with the Chiefs got it in easy versus Cleveland. Obviously, they always do well. Atlanta's wide receivers, Calvin Ridley's got it in good, similarly to Pitts. Michael Pittman, a lot of people ask about starting Michael Pittman. He's one of those guys, like I mentioned. Do I sit Michael Pittman? Michael Pittman's playing Seattle, relatively easy matchup versus position. I like Michael Pittman a lot this year. Who's going to be the number 2? I think it's going to be Paris Campbell, but maybe Zach Pascal, guys that have had years to wow us guys and we're not wowed, okay? Moving on here, Baltimore receivers, relatively easy matchup versus Vegas. But again, who do you trust there? Marquise Brown, Watkins, guys I don't really trust and not on any of my teams, okay? Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, mid-range matchup right there. Adam Thielen, mid-range matchup as well, okay? So, like I said, guys, just be smart with your picks. Try first week, feel it out, right? We talked about Allen Robinson, Keenan Allen having the tough matchups. Monitor. Okay, they had a tough matchup. How did they do? And again, this could be just based on the defense. How are the defense? Maybe the defense has changed. Maybe the defenses suck more. Maybe they got better, right? So the first 2-3 weeks of feel out stage, start your best players at this point, okay? It doesn't matter the match. If your Herbert's your only quarterback, start him. He's good. He's going to be fine. All right, so let's go to running backs. Optimal matchups. I love this. Raheem Mostert. Okay, I'm not really a Raheem Mostert fan, but he's got a good matchup again, picking on Detroit, right? He's got playing Detroit. James Robinson versus Houston. Love him. I'm starting him. Great matchup. Got him in DFS as well. Lindsey Lohan. Okay. David Johnson, Mark Ingram. They've got a pretty good matchup against Jacksonville. Joe Mixon versus Minnesota. Easy matchup. Now, Joe Mixon, make or break season. Is he going to do it? Let's watch him week 1. Let's see what he can produce. If he doesn't do well against Minnesota week 1, I'm really going to be concerned. I'm not a Mixon owner, but I told you to kind of fade him. We'll see how he does, okay? We'll see how week 1 goes. I'm sure a lot of injuries are going to happen. It always happens week 1. Somebody gets screwed. Let's see how it all plays out. Speaking of injuries, Dalvin Cook is playing Cincy. He's got a really easy matchup. Let's hope he survives the season. Nick Chubb, easy matchup. Him and Kareem Hunt versus KC front line there. Got it in easy. Michael Carter got it in easy, but Tevin Coleman's kind of the slated starter. We're going to have to see how that plays out. Saquon Barkley. A lot of people asking, do you start and sit Saquon Barkley? And this is interesting. I've got him. From what I heard from it, like I said, from a Giants insider, he's going to be limited. They've got a Thursday night game. I believe it's a divisional game. I think they're playing Washington on the 16th. So, with Saquon, this is a tough one. I'm unless I have a better option, which I have other options. Like I've got like 4 running backs that I could start. So I may slide him on my bench and probably slide up my other running back from flex up to my RB2 position, RB1 position, and then maybe bench him. I'm still going to see. I'm going to see how I feel on Sunday, but again, I think he's going to be limited. So limited to what though? Is he going to be limited to goal line work? Is he going to be limited to 5 carries? What's he going to be limited to? In a game they need to win. They want to get their season off at a good momentum. He's had tons of time to heal. I hope he plays. I'm most likely going to start him. Najee Harris, relatively easy matchup as well. Same with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Kind of a mid-range matchup for them. Mid-range matchup for Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, guys like that I know you're going to be starting. Jonathan Taylor, again, completely mid-range in regards to difficulty of matchup. They're playing Seattle as well. So it's not going to be the easiest matchup for them. So looking at some of the tough matchups versus running back position, Aaron Jones got it in tough with New Orleans Rush D. David Montgomery's got it in tough with the Rams this week. Austin Eckler, from what I understand, he may play. Now, he had the hamstring injury last year, already showing signs of hamstring injury this year. I told you, he's not a durable back. He's not a guy you want to draft in the first round. He was top 6 in PPR in the consensus rankings. Already banged up with the hamstring. If he comes back too early, he's gonna tweak it, and it's gonna be worse for you guys. If he does play week 1, I would imagine he's gonna be limited. I'd like to see a little bit more of maybe Joshua Kelly, Larry Roundtree. Like to see a little bit more of them, but they do have it in tough week 1. Okay, so if he plays, he's got it in tough. Leonard Fournette, as you saw last night. Just going back, I'm using this as an example. Tough matchup. How do you do? Go look at his stats. But he had a tough matchup versus Dallas Rush D. Okay. And, he didn't do the greatest. I saw him drop a ball as well. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, again, tough matchup, so be cautious with him. I'm again, concerned about Clyde Edwards-Helaire volume this year. We're going to see how that plays out. And a lot of questions about Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson. They've got the 10th hardest matchup versus position based on my projections this week. They are playing Chicago. It's going to be tough. And Josh Jacobs has got it in tough with Baltimore's rush D as well, in and around 10th, 11th hardest versus position, all right? Antonio Gibson, a lot of people ask about him. Mid-range matchup versus Chargers rush defense. A lot of people are going to be wondering about him. And again, same with Jonathan Taylor. There it is, guys. Go back, listen again. If you are starting any of these guys, I broke down if their matchup is easy, if their matchup is hard. And by the way, I'm looking at Zeke Elliott. It said he had like the 14th hardest matchup versus position versus Tampa Bay. So he wasn't really green lit for me on my stats here. He had a tough matchup, and sure enough, it was tough. Although I think he would have done well if he had more volume. His points would have been a lot better, but he didn't get the volume. That was the problem with Zeke. He just didn't get the volume. It is what it is. They went with a throw-first offense, and they did well. Cooper doing well. And Cooper seems like he solidified the wide receiver one role, and I don't see the hype with CeeDee Lamb. Everyone said CeeDee Lamb's the one. He looked good, but he dropped a couple balls, more of a red zone target possibly, and Gallup was out, I think, in the second half. I think he was banged up. But if Gallup is there, Cooper is the one, CeeDee Lamb's not going to return that late second round value for you guys. He's a big waste of a pick, and it looks like it, okay? So, again, guys, there it is. There you guys have it. Starts and sits week 1. Subscribe and join the 365 community below. We're beginning the season. Get your season pass. It's a one-time payment. It's not like a monthly recurring. A lot of people do the monthly recurring. I do a one-time payment, guys. Get into the community. Linked it below. I appreciate you guys. Smash thumbs up. It helps me. Starts and sits week 1. Football's here. I can't wait till Sunday morning. Subscribe. I'm out.